The sun leaned low over the western plains as if it were an old soul itself, tired of watching people struggle beneath its gaze. Dust drifted through Red Willow Crossing, glowing gold in the fading light, settling on fences, roofs, and quiet regrets. Najoni walked through it barefoot, a woven basket of vegetables balanced carefully on her head, her steps measured and patient. At 23, her face still carried youth, but her eyes held the weight of someone who had learned too early how unforgiving the world could be. Beside her walked her 4-year-old daughter Ayana, small fingers wrapped tightly around her mother's hand, trusting without question that this hand would always lead her somewhere safe. The town watched them pass in silence, the kind that pressed heavier than words, and Najoni felt it settle into her shoulders as she moved forward anyway, wondering how long a woman could carry both survival and dignity without breaking. There had been a time when she believed love could shield her from cruelty. She had married young, dreaming of shared mornings and gentle futures. But when Ayana was born, the dream collapsed. Her husband looked at the child, then at Najoni, and something cold entered his eyes. He said a daughter was a burden, that she had failed him, that the child would bring misfortune. By morning he was gone, riding away with his pride intact, leaving her with a newborn and a silence that echoed for years. The town forgave him easily. Men were allowed to leave. Women were expected to endure. Doors closed. Faces turned away. Whispers followed her like shadows, and loneliness became something she wore like an old coat, heavy but familiar. Still she worked. She sold vegetables door to door, day after day, because hunger does not wait for kindness, and Ayana's small breaths at night were reason enough to keep going. The land she worked was not hers. It was a narrow, stubborn patch borrowed from Zamara Quinn, the largest landowner in the region and the most feared. His wealth spread wide, but his mercy did not. The agreement was clear. 1 year's payment, no delay, no excuse. The rains had been poor. The crops thinner than promised. Buyers fewer. Time slipped away like sand through open fingers. Najoni felt the change in the air before she saw it, the way animals sense danger before it arrives. On the day Quinn's men came, the town felt tense, as if holding its breath. They found her near the edge of the market square. Heavy boots. Rough laughter. One man grabbed the basket from her head, vegetables spilling into the dirt she had worked so hard to tend. Another blocked her path. Their shadows swallowed her and Ayana whole. Najoni pulled her daughter close, her heart pounding not for herself, but for the fragile life pressed against her chest. She spoke calmly, offered what little money she had, but cruelty does not listen. It only takes. In that moment, the world narrowed to dust, breath, and the sharp realization that standing alone had finally reached its limit. Then came the sound of hooves. Slow. Steady. Unhurried. A horse stepped into the square, dust lifting around its legs like the earth itself had recognized the rider. The man dismounted with quiet certainty. His name was Luther Graves, though most called him Luda. He was 30, broad-shouldered, weathered not by age but by loss. His eyes held a stillness that came from having buried things too deep to speak aloud. He took in the scene without haste, the men, the woman, the child clinging to her, and something shifted behind his gaze. Luda did not shout. He did not threaten. He asked a simple question: whose debt was being collected with such violence? The men laughed, confident in their power. The first blow came from them, loud and careless. Luda answered with controlled precision. Every movement was deliberate, final. Najoni turned Ayana's face away, but she felt it, the air changing, fear retreating, dignity stepping back into place. When it ended, Quinn's men stumbled away, pride wounded deeper than flesh, leaving behind a silence that felt almost sacred. Ayana looked up at the stranger with open curiosity, untouched by the town's cruelty. "Are you all alone too, mister?" she asked. The question landed softly but reached deep. Luda knelt to her level, hesitated, then nodded once. Najoni watched his face soften, watched truth pass through him without defense. In that moment she did not see a rescuer. She saw someone who understood loneliness as intimately as she did. He walked them home without asking. The cabin was small, the fire weak, but Luda treated it as something worth care. He fixed a loose hinge, fetched water, spoke little. His help came without expectation, without ownership. That night, as Ayana slept curled between dreams, Najoni sat across from him and felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Safety without debt, kindness without condition. Days began to change shape. Luda stayed nearby, helping quietly. He mended fences, shared food, stood present when Quinn's shadow lingered at a distance. The town watched, uncertain, suspicious of a kindness that did not demand payment. Najoni found herself breathing easier, laughing without counting the cost. Ayana followed Luda everywhere, learning the rhythms of horses and open land, her laughter stitching something whole inside them both. Yet Najoni knew peace in Red Willow Crossing was never permanent. Men like Quinn did not forgive Defiance. When Quinn returned, his smile thin and sharp, he demanded the land back. This time Najoni stood straight. Luda stepped beside her. Without anger, without spectacle, he paid the debt in full, not as rescue, not as claim, but as justice. Quinn took the money and rode away, defeated not by force but by dignity. Seasons passed. The land softened. The cabin warmed. One evening, beneath a quiet sky, Luda finally spoke of his past, of loss, of a home that had gone silent, of a life lived alone too long. He did not promise forever. He simply said he was tired of waking without purpose, and that he could not imagine a home without Najoni and Ayana in it. Najoni reached for his hand and the answer lived there. Their wedding was simple. No crowd. No noise. Just open sky, a few witnesses, and a child scattering wildflowers at her mother's feet. Najoni stood beside Luda, tears in her eyes, not from sorrow but from release. She had learned that strength was not only survival, it was allowing herself to be chosen and choosing in return. And if you ever find yourself walking alone through judgment and dust, remember this. Sometimes life arrives quietly on steady hooves, asking only honesty. And if you are brave enough to accept it, that quiet moment can become a home. After the wedding, life did not suddenly turn perfect, but it became steady, and that steadiness felt like a blessing. Mornings began with shared silence instead of loneliness. Najoni rose with the sun, no longer carrying the weight alone, while Luda tended the land with a patience that matched the soil. Ayana grew between them like a living promise, her laughter filling the spaces where sorrow once lived. The town slowly changed its gaze. Some still whispered, but others softened, learning that dignity has a quiet strength. Najoni's hands, once trembling with survival, now worked with purpose. She planted not just vegetables but trust. Luda built fences and mended roofs, not to claim ownership, but to protect what love had grown. There were hard seasons, failed crops, long winters, old fears returning, but they faced them together, shoulder to shoulder. Luda learned to speak more and Najoni learned to rest. At night, they sat beneath the stars, understanding that happiness was not loud joy, but shared endurance. In time, Red Willow Crossing remembered them not as broken people, but as a family rooted in resilience. And Najoni finally understood this truth. Life does not reward the strong, it rewards those who keep choosing love even after loss.